Good morning, faithful friends, activists, citizens of America and the planet. It's great to be with you again this morning. This is Jill Stein, Green Party presidential candidate, and today I have the honor of talking with Ray McGovern as part of our conversations, really profiles in courage to help you to have the courage to go green in this election. As you may know, this is the most distrusted and unliked set of presidential candidates that we have ever had in our history. A report from the New York Times, a poll 2 days ago, said that 80% of Americans consider this a repulsive election, and certainly it is. We are being forced into thinking. We're being propagandized and brutalized into thinking that we only have two choices, that we have to choose between a neo-fascist and a proven warmonger, that we have to choose between the queen of corruption and the king of sexual predators, a walking scandal machine. You know, this is an absolute disgrace and an affront to voters. So we're here to support the vast numbers of the American voters who are actually looking for a politics of integrity that is of, by, and for the people. So I'm really honored today to be talking with Ray McGovern, who was a CIA analyst actually for decades. And while at the CIA, under the Reagan administration, he was part of a very small group that gave the daily briefings to the top administrative officials in the Reagan White House. He was also head of the intelligence unit on the Soviet domain. So he's got a lot of background knowledge and a lot of insight about some of the issues that are most misrepresented by the two establishment candidates and are being used to fearmonger us. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Ray to help boost your courage and your resolve to go into that voting booth and to stand up for the democracy and the future that we deserve and that only we can deliver. The lesser evil is in a race to the bottom to the greater evil. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We should not be talked out of our vote and not be talked out of our power. Take it away, Ray. Thank you so much for being here.
You're most welcome, Jill. I'm in Berlin right now. I'll be talking to German legislators as they have the Bundestagssitzung this week. I've been talking with Germans since my arrival, and they are very much concerned with our planet. They get it about the Umwelt, you know, the environment. And yet when I ask them, well, who's your preferred candidate? They say, oh, it's a choice between pest and cholera, which means between pestilence or plague and cholera is cholera. And I said, well, no, it's not. And they said, well, who'd you vote for? I said, well, I voted absentee. I voted for Jill Stein. Jill Stein. Well, you know, this really upsets me. The Germans are highly educated, incredibly sensitive to the Umwelt, to the environment. And they don't know that there's only one candidate that cares about the planet. And I was interested in your addressing citizens of the planet. After all, it is the only planet we have, you know. Now, I could speak volumes about foreign policy implications of pests and cholera. But I'd like to say a little word about my being, well, my outlook as a grandfather, all right? I have 9 grandchildren. When the youngest was born just 2 years ago, I had this terrible insight that our youngest daughter, who gave birth to this little girl, well, when this little girl is as old as my daughter, 37, she will have this terrible, terrible decision to make. Will it be a moral thing to do to bring new life into this world? Will there be enough clean water? Will there be enough fresh air? My God. And so, the foreign policy aspects are clear. Jill is head and shoulders above everyone else in treating things logically and objectively, including things having to do with the Middle East, which, as you know, is the elephant in the room of the mainstream media. But it's the Umwelt, it's the environment that bothers me most, because that has to do with the long-term effects of whether it's possible to live on this planet. Now, the short-term thing, I just as soon avoid being fried by a nuclear exchange. And the way one of the candidates, namely the Democratic candidate, is baiting the Russian bear, I cannot be sure. As a matter of fact, the situation is as tense as it was for the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was the year I entered into the Army on active duty as a second lieutenant. So what's my reaction? Well, what I really, really, really don't like is the way the mainstream media puts up this infantile presentation that, okay, it's between two candidates, and should you vote for this terrible fellow Trump, I grant you that, well, then you'll be helping Hillary to lose, okay? Now, I don't want to be infanticized. I don't want to be made an infant here. I want to make my own choices, okay? And, there are reports today that people in St. Louis and Ohio, Alzheimer patients, have been recruited to vote and have been wearing these I just voted sort of thing. Now, what's my point here? My point here is that you would have to have Alzheimer's, as the major media has, to forget about Hillary's support for the fact that millions of people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and now Syria are dead. And millions others are refugees because of policies voted for and actively supported by our former Secretary of State. So what we have is very selective Alzheimer's on the part of the corporate press. Why? Because they were rooting for those same wars and still are. So bottom line for me is we have to have the courage to vote our conscience for once. I hate to be told that a vote for somebody would be a vote to somebody else. I have somebody I'm very proud to vote for, and I'm proud to say that I already have. What really bothers me is that so few people know who Jill Stein is, even in Greenland here. What I refer to, of course, is the heavily green-influenced political atmosphere here in Germany. So I vote my conscience. I have voted my conscience, and I'm just dearly hoping that at least 5% of my fellow Americans will see through this charade in the public media. So I mention one more thing. James Comey. Oh, what a courageous guy, right? Well, he's protecting his derriere here. He knows that there's heinous information that has been released or about to be released about Hillary. What's he done? Well, he's done what in Watergate we called a modified limited hangout. It's damaging enough for him to reinstitute the investigation. But then he says, but I can't tell you. I can't tell you what's in those emails until after the election. Give me a break. If Julian Assange can sort through tens of thousands of messages in just a couple of weeks, surely the FBI and everybody else they could co-opt into helping out would be able to determine before the election, like within the next 2 days, what the culpable emails were that forced Comey to protect his rear end by reinstituting the investigation. So the whole corrupt system needs to change. And the only way we can change that is give parties like the Green Party a chance and to have the courage to go green.
Thank you so much, Ray. Really well said. And I'll conclude following up on your mention of 5% of the vote. Right now, we are hovering around 4 and 5% in recent polls that actually undercount our base, that is independents, millennials, immigrants, people of color. So we could very well be right at that threshold. Your vote can make all the difference. If we get to 5%, that means we have substantial funding in the next presidential election, about $10 million right out of the starting gate. It also means we have automatic ballot access in most states. This is transformative. This means that the American people actually get to have what you have been clamoring for. That is an independent choice that's not part of this corporate duopoly, the Democrats and Republicans, who've been throwing us under the bus. It means we have a real independent challenge that is not bought and paid for by Wall Street, by the fossil fuel giants, by the war profiteers. We have a real party that's of, by, and for the people. We hit the ground running, and we together can start to take our future back. So thank you, Ray, for being here today. Thank you for all that you do. And I look forward to all of us continuing to work together. Nobody's going home on November 9th. We're just revving up for the next battle, and we will be all the stronger if we have established a truly independent political base by reaching that 5%. So don't throw your vote away on political parties that have thrown you under the bus. Invest your vote in a real movement for change by voting green in 2016. Thank you so much, Ray McGovern, and we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you, Jill. Mm-hmm.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much.